Hey everybody, this is RJ with Bad Dinner Guests. I'm here with Kevin tonight. Me and him kind of had this off the cuff idea that we'd both been, I think, fidgeting about in one context or another. We wanted to kind of to read into the Bible a little bit more. Both of us have, I'd say, pretty different religious upbringings. As far as that goes, I don't think we're really on the same page as far as going to church and that kind of stuff there. But just through my experiences with it, there's a lot of questions, and people talk about it a lot, whether it be in the news or just life. They'll talk about it a lot, and you don't really have context for it. And it seems like religion's like perforated so much into society that you can't escape it, whether you know anything about it or not. And this seems to be the religion that's there the most. So I would like to know more about what I'm talking about or what I'm hearing about. And I make a lot of jokes about religion, to be completely honest, probably because of how involved in it I was as a kid. But yeah, I'm pretty critical of it. So I feel like it's only fair, if I at least give it a chance and read the book that they say to read. I'm constantly saying with my political stuff, go out there and read about it, learn about it, don't just talk about it. Kind of need to maybe start doing that myself. And I felt like there's probably a lot of people out there that know about the Bible in passing, have religious upbringing but didn't pay much attention to it. Maybe you just like to argue with people a lot and you know there is no God. Either way, it can't really hurt to like know what's in there. So me and Kevin would like to basically give you an unfiltered, just first once over of the Bible. I've never read it in depth. I think in like third grade I read through Exodus entirely, but I've never read the entire Bible. I've only ever had it told to me. So that definitely, just we know through the news, if you don't go straight to the source, stuff gets skewed. I know through sermons, a lot of people's preachers they'll pull from John and from Genesis and from Exodus to spin their sale for the week. And I don't even want to say that I'm like starting this as I think the church is a bad thing or doing that's necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I'd like to start and stop it, see what it's like.
And we have some agreements there. Hello, everyone. This is Kev here.
Sorry.
We have some agreements as far as my background goes. Just to give it a little loosely here, I was raised in a Pentecostal church. For the first 8 to 9 years of my life, I was in church every Wednesday, twice on Sundays, the occasional Saturday. It was something that I was incredibly into at a young age, and then I had some experiences that changed my perception on that at still a relatively young age. It was right around 10 or 11 when I really sort of switched gears and became definitely, I wouldn't call it an atheist, and definitely not, I guess, an agnostic is the term that gets thrown around a lot to describe someone who believes that there's a supreme being, but maybe has this notion that man-made religion was put there to just keep people in line. And so those of you who have listened to our other episodes know the kind of discussions that we like to have. And when you do a lot of conspiracy theory research and alternative history research, you find a lot of things, especially in the conspiracy realm, that call back to the Bible. And much like RJ said, we promote the idea of go to the source, do your own research rather than just take other people's word for it. So I have yet to go back and read the Bible as a full-grown man. I believe the last time that I read through it again was probably in my preteen years. So
you have actually read it all?
I have read, I don't necessarily know that I have read it cover to cover. I have read good portions of it. Revelations, read all of the I feel like there's some spots in the Old Testament that I've missed, but yes, with all the Bible studies and stuff, it was almost a required reading. In fact, this Bible here that I'm using as for my notes for the show is filled with the highlighters, but there are definitely several chapters missing. So I will start just by saying that I don't pretend to know this thing at all. I am familiar with a lot of the stories, but it's almost like if you had like a Bible's greatest hits.
Yeah, okay.
That's what would be fresh in my mind.
Maybe we're more on the same page than I thought then, which is cool because then we know the things that we probably are coming into this with some questions about. So hopefully those things there we can research a little bit more, and maybe those episodes will do a little bit less reading, more like discussing why it's in the Bible or things like that, um, along those lines. So this won't just be us reading the Bible for sure, but maybe things like that we have those questions on. It can only be assumed other people with a slight familiarity would have those same questions.
Exactly, and that's I do want to toss at least one more disclaimer out there that I will not hesitate to be calling out moments of, well, hey, this is a point in the Bible. Hey, this conspiracy theory X, the people that buy into that, they use this verse that we just read to support that. What are your thoughts? Because that is sort of part of this is, they have, we will have one. I won't go too in depth because we have one in this very episode. I already know that it's coming. You could probably have several here. There's going to be a lot. A lot of people don't realize this. A lot of the conspiracy theory movement is based on Christianity. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are plenty that aren't. But there are still I was surprised at how many conspiracy theorist YouTube channels and stuff were devout Christians.
It's the same in the liberty movement, to a large extent too. I don't know exactly why, but yeah, a lot of people of Christian faith are also libertarian or align themselves heavily with the libertarian movement. Which is kind of funny because you always think of the church people being the ones that want to take over government, but the strongest like backers. I mean, you have Tom Woods, who's like the famous libertarian voice that's still kicking. Um, he's one of the biggest voices for it, and he's a devout Christian. Jason Stapleton's another person. He doesn't even cuss on his show. Austin Peterson, Christian. So you can keep going down the list, but that's all I'm saying is, yeah, it's crazy how often you run into these fringes that are also within religion really, really heavily. So hopefully this will give us more of a context when we're talking to those kind of people too.
And that's at least one of the reasons I want to do this was sort of, it just seemed like with you with the liberty movement, with me with the conspiracy theory and like I said, the alternate histories, we both have run into it. So I feel the need to have a better grasp and understanding of what's being taught here, and that is essentially what we're doing. So we're not just going to read the Bible to you. We're not going to tell you what to think. We're going to just read it, probably take turns reading it and stopping, never in mid-sentence, but stopping here and there to break things down. And I think that about covers it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I would definitely encourage. I think we're going to encourage people to come back and listen to this episode so they can get a footing on it when they come into our later episodes. And I'd like to stress, definitely comment if you have questions or if you have knowledge on anything we're talking about. We would always love to have that kind of input on our things.
Or if you have if you know we're getting close to a certain spot in the Bible where you want something looked at a little more closely. As I mentioned, I will be referencing any conspiracy theory, historical snafus that just some interesting stuff, just other things that are just involved and related with the Bible. So if you know of something regarding that, or whether it be the history of when, if you know we're about to do a certain chapter and you want to talk about it, something in the New Testament, anything, just get it out to us in advance so we can have time to do that extra research, and we will gladly do that and give you a shout out on air for bringing it up to us.
Yeah, my biggest thing is I just don't want to be accused of being blasphemous for the sake of being blasphemous. If I see something that's fucking hilarious in there, or if I drop the F-bomb like just there, it is what it is. Deal with it. It's not to like belligerently disrespect it or anything like that. I just want to be clear that we're coming open-minded to this and not from a place of just ripping it apart. I'm no more Sam Harris than I am just a stand-up comic looking for easy material. So I definitely want that to be clear with it.
Agreed. Yeah, I'd like to just second that from my end as well. We are, at least I am here. I'll speak only for myself at this moment. I am here to learn. This seems like a much more fun way, for lack of a better term, to get through. This is better than just reading it alone. We can sit here, we can have discussions, we can bring other people in on these discussions and get through this thing and kind of learn together. And what better way than to have multiple perspectives on things, to sort of, it keeps you from having a lot of good material you have to read once or twice or 3 times to get it. This might be more helpful. 2 people reading it to you. You can call in and discuss sometime or drop us a comment. So I want to also throw out that I am not here. I will do my best on my end to keep it clean, but a disclaimer, I don't really believe in self-censorship. I think cuss words aren't a big idea, or aren't a big deal. I apologize.
No magic words.
And so take that for what it is. I will apologize. I am not ever intending to make a mockery, but again, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to call out things that don't sit right with me. But there will also, of course, be times where I agree with some things that are said here. So just take it for what it is. We are who we are. We're not trying to tell you what to think. As always, part of why we're doing this is to give you the source material. We are reading from the King James Version. We're going to read it verbatim. So also forgive us for any mispronunciations. And if it gets boring at times, bear with us. We'll try to jump in and out with the commentary during the longer parts. But just take it for what it is. And
just on the record, though, just out of curiosity, because I would also probably identify as agnostic. And one of the reasons is because I've felt, I don't want to say like divine intervention, but you just feel like things line up that shouldn't. You know what I mean? Or something happens and you should be dead or like, you know what I mean? Or you have a premonition. And, you can argue we're in the fucking Matrix, again with the F-bombs. But you can argue all of these things, but that's kind of why I identify as agnostic, and that's why I want to make sure, like, I don't know, just saying, like, I'm not trying to go out and disrespect it, and I'm not going into it thinking I'm going to hate it, 'cause we keep saying we're going to call out stuff. But there might be stuff that I can be like, oh, that's kind of like a cool way of, like, relating to that. I don't think it's going to be all critical, really, either. But we'll see.
So those were our disclosures. We'll refer back to this episode from now on because we're not going to suffer through that part again.
No.
We will not continue to apologize for being ourselves. So here's the disclaimer. It will be on record now.
Yes, thank you. Thanks again for tuning into this episode, the first episode of us talking about this stuff. So we're going to kick off tonight at Genesis 1:1. At least for the time being, I'm going to be your narrator. So I do apologize. It's been a while since I've read off a screen out loud. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Just stopping right there. That's like a parallel that comes into a lot of, like, any book you read, the light came into the darkness and the darkness did not understand. Like, that's how into, like, our culture the Bible is, though.
Yeah, it really is. It's a recurring theme. I mean, just think about that sort of that good versus evil.
Yeah. Like,
but that's sort of been instilled with us from the beginning of mankind. If you think about it, like before we were, it's hard for us to relate to this concept. But even during these times where when the Bible was written, where man was still civilized, the nighttime was a much different place back then. With there actually being other, it was a terrifying thing. Yeah. So it was actually so very easy for the early man to associate light with good and dark with evil, because they were terrified and scared every night in the darkness. And so I think that has sort of been where that came from. Now, the light, that it was good. And it doesn't say God divided the light from the darkness. It doesn't say that the darkness is bad. But I feel that that's sort of, this theme is just a recurring parallel just in human nature altogether. I think it's sort of reflecting our our subconscious on that one.
Even as somebody that almost completely buys into evolution as we understand it, like apes, you go clear back, nighttime has always been the time that you were not to be out. Like, so it is just that constant separation there being defined, but it's also the first thing anybody notices. Anyhow, so we are at Genesis 1:5. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. I'm sure you have something to say there about the firmament.
So, here's where we'll start. There's a couple more lines here to read, but of course I'm going to start right now with some of our analysis going forward here, I have to ask some questions or at least make some points about. You're about to hear a good majority of the flat Earth movement's argument right here.
Yeah.
It's that word firmament, and it's the way these next few things are described that is used almost as evidence. It's used essentially as evidence because what we have for a lot of a decent amount of flat Earth movers is people taking this part of the Bible literally. And so I wanted to point that out because I have no idea where you stand on it.
Do I think there's a firmament above? I mean, that's.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know where you stand. If you think the flat Earth movement is an absolute joke, if you think
the flat Earth movement. You know, I love a good underdog. So, if you were to take the Bible literal, which I did for probably the first 12 years of my life, and then partially literal for another probably 5 to 6 years, I would call that the ozone layer. I'd be like, oh, that's what they were talking about, the ozone layer. You know, science talks about this now. It's the same thing they were talking about. It's what holds everything in.
The Van Allen belt, just to also throw it out as a possible, the belt of radiation that we have around the Earth could be another scientific explanation to this verse. Sorry to interject, but...
No, you're good. But one of the conspiracy theories that I've always kind of liked is that the reason this parable gets thrown down is it was a really easy way to remember to tell how things began. And as somebody that thinks that there was a society before we believe the Bible was written, essentially. If you look at like remnants and artifacts throughout the globe, it's pretty clear that there were societies here before the time of the Bible, before Abraham and his sons, or whoever it ends up being and his sons. There was definitely a society and construction prior. So, to me, this is somebody in their last throw is being like, how can we make sure this knowledge gets to somebody? So you're trying to give somebody a place to start, assuming that the people we are today aren't the closest to the apes we've ever been. You know what I mean? That there was a society before us just as intelligent as us, but maybe 10, 15,000 years ago. We don't know.
Right. For instance, I encourage our listeners to do research on this topic. I will do some, and of course, I want to have a discussion as a completely separate podcast some other time. But the pyramids of Giza, to just finally spit it out there, that is allegedly a lot older than a lot of people would think. I can't pull a date off the top of my head, but it doesn't make sense. The way they've you know how they go back and test these things through erosion and stuff. Yeah. And so like you said, cities.
The Sphinx is another one. If people that are interested want to look into it, just look up erosion theory and the Sphinx. But that's the reason we're going over the Bible, not to keep giving our preface here, but it's because all of these things pop up through. We've just named like 6 different avenues these things pop up, and they're not all conspiracy theories. So that's the reason you kind of want to go back and see what are people talking about. Did you have any other notes here on the firmament, or you want me to get into it?
Well, we can probably just dig into it here a little bit. If
cool.
Do you want me to take over? You want me to read these next few here?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'll just go back to the last one just to get us back onto. We'll just do the whole firmament thing, and then we can pause there and break it down.
Genesis 1:6.
Genesis 1:6. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so." Okay, I'm going to have to pause. I thought I could get through that whole thing, but I felt like reading that out loud, it would be confusing to my ears later if I went back to listen. So I kind of want to break down number 7.
Dude, I feel like we could do an episode on number 7.
Yeah,
so
6 and 7 itself, it's talking about a whole bunch of water everywhere, and the firmament makes it sound like there's a big cube with waterfalls flowing.
I'm going to read it out loud again just because it helps me to digest things. But I just didn't want to mutter it while you were talking. But, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. So essentially, they're saying that there's a divider and above its water and below its water.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like essentially that we are Atlantis, that we are at like the bottom of some ocean, but there's just an air bubble, a glass dome over our heads is almost what it sounds like.
Now, that makes me want to dig into how the word waters was translated. 'Cause you dig into shit like that sometimes and you find out that it was, like, open to interpretation,
Yeah.
and could have been space, like, how else are you going to talk about these things? And again, I always come back to I think this was a way of passing down stuff in a way that could be easily translated, as far as some of these books like Genesis go.
Yeah, I think there was an allegorical side to it as well. I agree with you. How I don't know how else you would explain it. You mentioned this before we recorded, so I'm sorry to steal your thunder, but it just came back in my head. It's how were they able to tell the creation of this whole planet in, what was it, 31 verses? You're going to have to you're not going to be able to get into every detail that way, certainly.
No, but it wasn't really important. Not when you're still kind of worried about getting conquered by your neighbors next door, that kind of thing there.
Well, and that's what an
Live 30 years.
anti-literalist argument would be, sort of. These are reasons why maybe you shouldn't read every word verbatim and accept that is, maybe the idea is for you to try to see the message that's inside as well.
Yeah.
And learn that.
But as any work of fiction, you should.
Right. Well, with this firmament part, the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. This is interesting. So I want to throw out a little conspiracy theory. This again towards our flat Earth movement. So if you go out and watch some of these flat Earth movement videos, or at the very least the anti-NASA videos, the videos that tell you we've never been to the moon, that space is a joke, that we actually. Some of them will actually say, hey, look, there's a glass dome X amount of feet above the Earth, so all the astronauts can do is get into low Earth orbit and then block off all their windows and make a little circle, and then they back the camera up and they shoot from inside a space shuttle. They just shoot this little ball window of the Earth, and it looks like, they're flying over an ocean. There's, so this is the argument. Not every argument, of course. This is an argument that gets made. So this firmament thing, one of the things you see with the water is there are a lot of NASA, a lot of anti-NASA videos out there that claim that some of the videos that they show you of spacewalks are actually just astronauts in a giant pool underwater.
Okay.
And that there are air bubbles, and they show little moments where bubbles of air come out of an astronaut's helmet and float up. Also, I don't know, NASA announced they made major changes to their suits where they had to, I forget exactly the mechanism, but they had to implant a mechanism for draining the astronaut's helmet so that they wouldn't drown in space.
Yeah.
So how weird would it be in some like shock M. Night Shyamalan twist to think there was actually like water up in space, and that they were some way being literal, just in a way that we can't understand. Like maybe there is some water out up in space.
I wonder.
It just not in a. You see what I'm saying? Like.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
It's just a weird little caveat, just to kind of.
If you ever speculate about that, give me a heads up. I'd like to talk about that 'cause that's interesting. I could see that going a lot of different ways.
Oh, absolutely. We have to do a flat Earth episode someday, but that's for a different day on Bad Dinner Guest.
Well, we're basically doing the precursor today.
Well, and this is why I knew we wouldn't get too far into Genesis on the first episode, because there's just too much to go into here, and we're still not done with the flat earthers yet. So we are on to Genesis 1, verse 10.
You were at
No. I was at
1.
No, I was at. Well, no, I read 7. Oh yeah, so it's 8. Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry, 8. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and it was gathering together, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good.
So the first day he created the second day he created the heaven. Wait, what did he do now? So he put water,
Water under the heaven on the second day,
and he made dry land.
and
And then
gathered
he
it
named
into
it.
one place.
Okay. So 9 and 10 is just him making it, naming it. I thought he gave a day for it to dry out there. I was misreading it. I'm sorry.
Let the dry land appear, and it was so. So I'm not really seeing anything there that would suggest that the earth is flat. But
No. Again, I don't know.
not necessarily saying that that's one that gets pulled there. That's
Yeah.
okay. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the water called he seas, and God saw that it was good. Really nothing there. God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. So plants.
They're basically explaining how plants grow there
Yep.
and how they were created. God made them, and then he named them, and that's why they're there. Just to go back a second, that you were saying, like, you don't see anything that, like, helps the flat earth movement. Like, literally we're using their own thing to be like, well, we don't really see a whole lot of evidence to say that they're saying it couldn't be round, even in the Bible. The firmament doesn't really prove to me that the earth is flat. It doesn't say it's a dome.
No, and that's why I'm wondering. Well, because we will see more firmament talk come back into play around verse 14.
Okay, sorry.
14, 15, and that's where because there is something. Yeah, and then it gets back into the firmament a little bit, talking about the heavens. There was someone who claimed, and I'm getting ahead of myself. It's bad. I'm reading ahead. Is that the firmament was hung up like a blanket in the night sky. Anyway, we'll have to get back.
Okay.
What?
We're on verse 13, day 3.
We're on 13? Okay.
Yeah, it's
And the evening and the morning were the third day, which, little fun fact, my favorite Christian band of all time growing up was called Third Day. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Mine was Nevertheless.
DC Talk was a close second, but Third Day, I will still to this day, I have a few Third Day songs on my iPod that I will get down to.
That's funny.
And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
So right here the Bible's saying, mark your time, mark everything by the stars, and by day and night. So, again, just planting that real early there. This is a steady way to measure shit and pay attention to it. They're even mentioning seasons, and I thought they said holidays, but I'm wrong. I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, that's the point.
Yeah.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. All right. And God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. I love the way they word these sentences.
I love the use of the semi, or the full-on colon.
Yeah, you don't see, there's a semicolon and a colon in this. Like, ooh, this really speaks to me on an intellectual level as well. They have some fun with these sentences.
Well, they're being very... I love how the Bible chooses its words wisely. I've always been a fan of, like, saying as much as you can with the fewest words. And a lot of people hate that they're large words. I like it because you can get a lot of information in one sentence.
Yes. And it forces you to read slowly, which allows you to actually process what you're reading.
Yeah.
And to the benefit of those listening to you read, actually allows them to process what you're saying.
Yeah.
Rather than when you read things really fast like this and then they try to keep up quickly and they don't know what I'm saying.
Nice. I was like, wait, what? Fuck. Oh, shit.
Oh, yes. That's the clip we're going to use when we promote this. It's going to be the first 3 seconds of the trailer.
No, I'm editing it out.
Come to our Bible study.
Yeah, basically we should send an invite to Xenos.
Done.
So you were at
17. So, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good.
So
you see that? You know, when I talk about recurring themes, they're just saying, but essentially what this is telling you is, hey, everything that you have right now on the earth, this is good.
Yeah.
They're just reinforcing, like, just right off the bat, be happy. This is God's creation. This is how it should be.
Yeah.
I don't see where they said flatten this and make it a mini mall.
No, me
But
neither. On top of
maybe
that,
we'll get there. We might get there.
they keep, and you'll see this through, I remember enough of Genesis, you will keep saying, and God saw that it was good. And this is a lot of Christians will call themselves like works of art. And you don't criticize an artist's work and tell him that it's not good. You know what I mean? This is him creating it, naming it, and deeming it good.
Yeah, I don't understand personally. This is one of those moments that why we gave the disclaimer. Here is me. I don't know if I'm being nitpicky, but here's me as the objective, as the person who is not 100% a believer as I'm reading this. When I'm like, well, I know why. I'm trying to think of at this work's conception, what is the point of the constant repetition of it is good?
Again, it's if you believe that you were created by a master, it's already been deemed. There's no argument to whether something is bad or good. You know what I mean? So this is when you get questioned on, is this how it's supposed to be? Well, God made it, and He said it is what it is. If He says it's good, that's life.
I see.
Am I making?
It makes
sense
to me now.
I feel like I'm not making sense to myself. But yeah, this is your when you it's good for children too. When they have a question, well, God made it, and He said that is how it is. Deal with it.
That's
Accept
fair.
it.
That's fair.
And also, I bet it's really easy to relate to other religions, as well, and it's really easy to get those points across, no matter how you say 'em. I would think. I don't know. Do you want me to start, or you got it?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Take it
we are
away.
at 22. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth." No, we skipped some verses, but because right there is some whales.
Wait, yeah, what? Oh, did you
I scrolled a little bit. I do apologize to the listeners. We will get better at this as time goes. I want to eventually just be reading from the book. It makes it easier. So this is divided light from darkness. God saw that it was good, and then created. We are at the fourth day, right? Yeah.
So I'm gonna just that scroll screen. Gotcha.
Sorry. So we are actually at 19. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Anything in there? I mean, He's creating everything but us there. Again, with the firmament. What was it? Was it 20? Yeah. So, and fowl that may fly above the earth and open firmament of heaven. So, is this saying that there's no divide?
Open firmament. Well, see, there you go right there. It says it fly in the open firmament.
So there is no ozone layer. What the?
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Where's the firmament?
Well, but hang on here. So here's the example of potentially not to just crack the flat Earth movement here, but this could be potentially a situation of choosing.
We have the documents.
I have the choosing your evidence. Right here's a spot where it suggests that the firmament is just sort of an allegory for the sky, because it said the open firmament. So unless they're suggesting that, if you want to be a literalist here, how does a literalist interpret this? That, okay, well, there's a glass above the sky, but that the birds can fly up through like a hole in it and get up into heaven? Or is the firmament in open?
And Jesus definitely ascended through it, and angels ascend through it.
So
yeah, the flat Earth movement loses credibility before I even read too much in the flat Earth movement here. But I staying away from the flat Earth movement here. What are they saying about what I would have been like? Well, that's the ozone layer. What are they saying about that? If they say that the birds fly above it and it's an open firmament of heaven, so heaven is where the birds can fly, that would make it the sky. So is the firmament what keeps us on the ground, or did they not realize that wings were what let the birds leave?
Yeah, admittedly, so I knew that we would come to this point. I wasn't certain that we would come to this in the first episode. Here we go. Here's the first verse that has me just confused and answerless, because I almost feel like I owe the flat earth movement an apology. I didn't mean to necessarily just discredit what they said. My sort of, that was just like my knee jerk to the open firmament.
I don't even think.
But I don't know what this line is telling me.
Yeah.
I really don't. This is very confusing, but it suggests earlier that the firmament separated waters that were above and below, and now it's saying here that there's an open. So is it suggesting that there's a solid firmament and then a tertiary firmament, a secondary firmament?
Again, I don't know. I just didn't want to only try and I didn't want this to turn into like.
Well, I don't think either of us are going to know.
Actually question about this, and I can't but I wanted to make a point to question it too. But yeah, fuck the flat earth movement. So let the waters bring forth. I don't know.
Let the waters hit the floor.
I would like to ask somebody that was like writing this shit what they meant. I guess again, it doesn't really matter.
I think we're gonna have a lot of those moments.
Yeah, what verse is that line? So our listeners, there's the
that is verse 20.
And God said, "Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that have life, and the fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven." Or maybe they're saying that there's multiple layers like that. Maybe they're independent of each other.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
I wish they would have labeled them A, B.
Or at any point in time use firmaments. Don't just use the same word twice. There had to be more than one word. But again, it could be purposely vague like that. So,
yeah. I don't know why you would leave.
I don't think we're gonna
purposely vague.
I don't think we're gonna find an answer.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's something I'd like to look into sometime. So we'll just get back into 21. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. So just all the really cool animals that he made, and then he saw that it was good. 22.
Easy enough.
And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. So again with the fruitful and multiply. He saw that it was good. Make more of it because it's good. Okay, on the 20. Dead air, hello. 23. In the evening and the morning were the 5th day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creatures after his kind, cattle and creeping things. Cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. What's wrong?
So I'm just trying to figure out. Nothing's wrong. But I'm a little confused when it says, and the cattle after their kind. Is this suggesting to me that there are like heaven cows? And that heaven cows were the blueprint of earth cows? Because God made the beast of earth after his kind. So are we the beast of earth that was made in God's image? Is that what that's saying?
I'm glad you said in his image, because that's instantly the thought that just popped in my head.
Which,
maybe that's what they're saying, is that they made him.
For the record, that comes 2 verses later in 26. And God said, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. And notice he says our. But granted, we'll break that one down momentarily. The creeping thing and the beast of the earth after his kind. What does that even mean?
Is that just saying that, when two animals have sex, they make an animal like them? Explaining how that works? Or is it saying evolution? That he created every winged fowl after his kind, so there was an original, and then all of the others are branches off of that.
Well, believers of the Anunnaki or Sumerian tablet beliefs might say that it suggests that the Anunnaki created our animals based on some animals that they had. But what as far as this goes, just trying to throw another random thought
Yeah, but
process brought out.
when they preach this, they make it sound so broad. But you can read this quote and you can make it sound like they're saying there was an initial animal, and then it made all of these other ones just kind of similar to it or like it, in his kind. Made winged fowl after his kind.
Well, and that's what is sort of the reason I threw in that out of left field example was that they will talk. They people who will make those arguments they'll look at Bible verses and they'll be like, well, this doesn't disprove what I'm saying. This is just allegory for what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And here is one of those examples where you get someone who, in the conspiracy theory realm, is like, hey, planet Nibiru rotates around the Earth every 13,000 years or whatever, and every once in a while these aliens pop down. Oh, by the way, those aliens are our gods, and you read about it in the Bible, but it's an allegory for the gods being aliens.
But nowhere in the Bible here do you see any mention of Christianity. It's just God, which is the creator. You know what I mean? So these stories, they definitely, they could still be a part of that just as easily as they're part of Christianity. It's just Christianity co-opted them. You could go on to believe or say, I'm not saying that's necessarily this case. But yeah, so that's why I think this is interesting though, because it does definitely delve into all those. And a lot of people, when they hear the Bible, they think, "Oh my God, Christianity!" But oh my God, Christianity! But we haven't mentioned it once because it's not in there. These are things that were passed down and then put into this book, and we should talk definitely later about how this got created and stitched together at some point, just because of that, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that'll get its way worked in.
Because I think
it'd be
a lot of the stories might
unavoidable,
have merit.
especially once we get to the New Testament.
Yeah, I can't wait. We're gonna get to a book of laws. I can't wait to go through those. We can probably just take a shot. We can turn that into a drinking game, I think.
That's fine. I am absolutely in.
Right on. Where were we, Kevin? Can you pick up there?
We were.
I'm gonna be that dickhead teacher in class. I apologize. Here, let me. In the evenings.
I believe we were on the 5th day. Fruitful, multiply the earth. I believe that's where we were.
God bless them, saying, "Be fruitful, multiply." Yep.
And let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind. Cattle, creeping thing. Oh, that was the one. And beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. So that was that's the one in question. So on to 25. God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, cattle after their kind, and everything. Wait a minute. God said, let forth. No, look at that. Look at the difference between 24 and 25.
Okay.
I thought that I was just read the same line twice, but I didn't. So this is going to get boring and redundant, but here we go.
No,
24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. 25. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And this is one of the downsides to the way it's written.
Yeah, I don't really understand
this is
what's
a counterpoint.
there.
Exactly. This is a
Let the earth
counterpoint.
bring forth the living creatures after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth. Yeah, it's literally the same sentence twice, just reworded a little bit. I don't.
Yeah, the first time
The second time he calls it good. The first time he makes it. The second time when he makes it, he calls it good.
And then the first time he says let forth, and then the second time he actually does it. But again, what does that mean?
Yeah.
So
Okay, so God thought about it and then he did it. It's God said, God made. That's the difference. The action.
Yeah.
So that shows he thought about it. He's like, I'm going to make some stuff. And then he actually did it. So there's some planning involved. These things weren't just like a snap of the wrist.
Makes sense.
They were actually that's the only thing I can get from that, because they are basically the exact same sentence. They're just, that's the only thing I can read it differently, is said and made.
Yeah, that would have to be it. So
again, showing that there's value to the work that was done. To me, is how that would be perceived. That it wasn't just like you weren't a whim. These animals weren't a whim. They're a value. Um. So were you at 27? Do you want me to pick up?
Yeah. Here I can read 27. So God created man, which that's funny. It sounds like me because I say so too often. Let me start over. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Okay. Male male and female created he them. Again, those are one of the moments where it's just awkward to read that. The he him, the he
Yeah.
them.
So
This is the creation of man in God's image. In the image of God created he him. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it. It's a weird choice of words. And have dominion over fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. All right. Thoughts on that?
continue, and then we'll go back to it, 'cause we probably should wrap this up. We are 46 in.
Got it. Well, how about you? You take us home.
Okay.
Stop where
I
you
want
would
to
like to
start
stop.
where you stopped there.
Yeah.
What was that? The 27?
I stopped at. Yeah, you can just start at 27.
Okay. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over fish of the sea, and over fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seeds, I like saying herb, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. And God saw that everything he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. And as we all know, on the seventh day he rested. So that's why I wanted to kind of wrap up here.
What? Spoiler alert.
Oh my God.
Dang it.
That was so meta. No, I just want to finish up there because, like, again, this is him making it all and then naming it. But instead of just, like, naming it, he goes on to, like, in the story, he goes on to not only, like, it definitely, where you used to let off there, it definitely seems like they are at 27. It definitely makes them say that he created man. So they're saying that he created the dude in the image of God, created he him. So they're making sure you know God's a dude, and that he created the dude first. And then it says male and female created he them. So he's also making sure you know he created chicks. But it definitely makes sure it defines that he created the dude, and then he is also a dude. To me, that's what I get there.
Right. I can see that there. If you're gonna play devil's advocate.
Okay, I don't.
Go ahead.
I'm not even saying that's like a devil's like advocate.
No. I was gonna elaborate on the devil's advocate
go
thing.
further.
I wasn't calling you one.
Okay.
Let's say if you are going to play devil's advocate to my conspiracy theory games and look into the idea of an unpopular conspiracy theory to someone who has probably read this Bible a lot would be the one that the Bible was created to help control people. And so if you are going to follow that rabbit hole of was priestcraft just used to control the masses? What better way to keep the entire gender down than to immediately right off the bat in their religion let them know that they are secondary? As I said in this disclosure, I am coming at this bad boy from all angles. That's the point. I'm hoping to see what I can learn, but I'm not going to just accept anything one way or the other. So had to throw that one out there too. That's a very interesting, because those are specifically chosen words, and yeah.
Okay.
That's all I had on that one.
Yeah. What was you on 26? I know we started on 27 there, but you said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness," was kind of conspiracy for some reason.
Well, and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Who else? Who's he referring to? Who's the we? It's
Oh, yeah.
our.
I
You
guess it
don't.
would just be the
When
angels,
you
huh?
when I ask you, hey
Yeah.
RJ, can I have your pencil? And you're like, no, you can't have our pencil.
Yeah.
You don't
You're like,
say
whoa,
that.
bro.
Yeah.
As far as I could tell so far, nobody's there with you. Yeah, I
So
feel you.
that's where again, to go back to, if to throw out our Nibiru Anunnaki
Yeah.
theorist, that's where they would say something like that. And God said, "Let us make man in our image." The idea of, much like the Greeks and Romans who believed in many gods, that's sort of the argument that the Bible God is more of a Zeus, and that there were multiple gods, especially in the Old Testament times. We will see this will be a
Not else
recurring
is an
theme.
angel, but
We
just
will
below
see
God.
the Elohim and the what else exactly? We'll see the Nephilim and the Elohim. I mean, we will see references to multiple gods in the Old Testament.
Okay.
What'll be one of the major differences you'll see when we switch from old to new.
Okay. The other thing I thought was interesting is, right after he creates people, he gives them dominion over the sea and the animals. Um, but it says replenish the earth, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. So this is pre-Great Flood. What the fuck are they replenishing from?
I see. That's funny. That's the one that the choice of words "subdue it" were the ones that popped up to me when I made that note while reading it. That's a weird choice of words.
Well, it's
The subdue part I thought was interesting, but yeah, the replenish, that one went right over or under my radar.
tell me more about the subdue it.
Well, I wanted you to tell me more about replenish the earth, but I'll tell you more about the subdue it first. That's fine. I just thought, again, it was just an interesting choice of words. Like subdue, when you think about that contextually, it's sort of like a master servant or a prisoner, prison sort of. It's almost, the word at its base almost, it feels authoritative. Like
Yeah.
it's, and so again, to play that, I got to find a different term for devil's advocate.
Yeah.
To play the atheist advocate, or agnostic advocate, I think that's better. If this idea is just there to control people, subdue is an interesting word to sort of,
Well,
unless, but again, to counterpoint here, it's also thought of like the earth could be wild, but the reason I kind of just leave that one vague is because I wanted you to go into your replenish the earth, because that could sort of play into subduing the wild earth.
No.
What are we talking about here with replenish
I
the
think
earth?
it's completely different. But as far as to subdue it, to me, that's the cool thing is, to me, as I read that, is giving it authority. So this is a God, and again, I'm not a Christian, but so this is a God that's giving you authority to take plants, take animals. You know what I mean? And not only that, don't just sit on your ass. Do something with it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I see, and we both picked up on that authority part.
yeah, but not so much as I'm controlling you as, hey, I'm making all this shit and it's up to you guys to like do your thing. But either way, as far as the replenish the earth, it's weird that it doesn't say, I don't know, I would like to actually just Webster's the word replenish real quick to make sure I'm not misunderstanding it.
Go
But
for it, but yeah,
It to me it means that there was something there.
that is the at least that's the common context that you find it
Plenish
in.
isn't a word on its own, so it's not like
To make full or complete again, as by supplying what is lacking. Well, there you go. But by supplying what is lacking, that essentially in its own kind of covers it.
yeah, but
But
it's clearly both definitions we see here are as fill something up again, restore. It's saying there was something there prior. So either it wasn't 7 days and these animals and these plants took some shit over, and then he was like, wow, they've overrun it. I need to put like somebody down there to tame this stuff. So he put people down, but obviously they're not going to take over the earth. We know how big the earth is. They're not going to take that over in a day. So that, or there was a human version beta.
yeah, and you bring up a good point, because you mentioned earlier the idea of there being civilizations before what we consider to be like our time. And there are people out there that believe in both the dinosaurs and that the Bible is true, and they sort of frame that belief upon the idea that we have misinterpreted that word day, and that it actually is, again, maybe at best an allegory to represent a longer period of time, that it's actually sort of, in age. It would really, there's no definition that I know of, that I am aware of, for this length of time. But if you would think of it that way, as in there are these 7 ages in which these were created, then that also makes things make a little bit more sense, where there could have been a world that sort of got a little out of control, and then
Doesn't that make more sense though to you, that like 7 ages that it would take? Okay, there was nothing, and then finally the water and the land separated, and then finally plants crept on, and then finally animals kind of made it, and then finally people. Like, to me, it's just
it doesn't it.
evolution.
Yeah, there you
Like,
go.
that's really how we still describe the creation of the earth.
It's
We just don't believe 7 days, and that's how. And when I first started like having religion like break down to me in my own mind, was like having to make these concessions, because I was always a literalist. I just always believed there was a God who created it, and then I was like, well, there's no way that happens in a day. Like, that just doesn't make sense. And evolution just makes too much sense. You can watch it happen. So, and there's a fossil basis for it, and there's also evidence that the earth is so old, and all these things came together, and I was just like, religion's lying. I need to leave. I don't know what the truth is, but this obviously is being spun in a manner that I'm never going to find it out. But yeah, 7 ages for that to happen, if you think of an age as hundreds of thousands of years, or we don't know how long, it's not too hard to see it as that. So as an allegory, again, if you're not a literalist or a Bible beater, and if you are a Bible beater, to me, it seems like this is more allegory.
And it's
So
not.
general.
I think it's worth mentioning that this isn't the only time where there are conflicts as far as lengths of time. For instance, I can't remember the verse, but we will undoubtedly get to it at some point, where it's translated as "I will be with you until the end of time," but that the actual translation should have been like "I will be with you until the end of this age," which would have been at this point a long time ago, since we've switched ages. But so little things like that, where it's like that's a
Have we?
huge, the way. Well, I'm talking about in the zodiac ways.
Oh, okay.
As far as like it's what the we're on our way to, what is it, Aquarius now? I think we're. I'm not
Is
great.
the dawning of
Yeah.
the age of. That's all I know about
I'm not great with the zodiac.
I'm
It's
not
something else I'm gonna have to research for this. But
I'm gonna go to the next page. I think we're finished basically here. Did you have any other thoughts on what we just?
nope, we actually were finished.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, we finished chapter 1 there, so that's
Finished chapter 1. So
a pretty decent stopping point. Do you have any final thoughts here? On the 7th day he rested, guys. If you don't know, on the 7th day God needed a break,
if you don't know now, you know.
which to me is him just like watching, just watching.
Big
Is
Bang
an
Theory.
allegory. No, he created man last, so the next age is him just watching it happen.
What if is that just like
We are day
current?
7.
Like what if we're
Yes.
just still in it?
Yeah,
like
we
just-
are day 7.
Is that what the 7th day church believes? We'll research that. If you're
don't
listening
know.
and you're a member, just let us know. It'll save me a lot of time researching you. Just tell me about yourself. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't. I've dropped the F-bomb too many times.
Yeah, they're gone by now.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm
That's
really
okay.
sorry.
We still got the casual atheist.
Maybe.
That's
I hope so. I gotta say, like, I want to like read this and be like, oh, there is a God. It's so clear. These are the answers. I really do. I would love that. That would be the easiest thing ever.
so. Wouldn't that be fate? How funny is that? It's
we would
definitely
turn
it's a
into,
definite
like,
possibility.
We could lie and turn it into a Bible movie and make millions.
Well, not now 'cause you just said it on
I
air.
can cut this out.
No, we're live. If Twitter has taught you anything, it's up here, man. There's someone that could get it.
Listen, there's redemption.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely am going to put some hymnals into the beginning and end of these 'cause I love a good old school hymnal. Alrighty, well, I don't really have any other final thoughts other than that. Then, yeah, I would like to end up finding the answers. I just don't so far think we're going to find them. But that's all I got. This has been fun.
Yeah, that's. I look forward to going further. I don't imagine this will take as long every time. They cram, or Moses or God crammed a lot of info into a little amount of space there. So normally we won't go at this pace. I'm sure we'll get through it quickly in the future, but bear with us. This program will adapt as we sort of adapt and get it figured out. We hope you enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and we look forward to another one.
For sure. That was Kevin. This is RJ. You can check us out at baddinnerguest.blogspot.com, at baddinnerguests with an S at the end on Twitter, or look us up on Facebook. Look at our short stories and check out everything else we talk about. Later.